welcome to my video for day number 6 of Inktober. So first things first, out of all of the pieces or days I've done thus far, this was by far the most difficult to push myself to create, primarily because of how much I actually had going on yesterday. The primary thing that really ate up a lot of my time is that I was part of an art show. It's still ongoing, but the premiere of it was last night, and that is so incredibly cool. It was open submission, so it wasn't something where you had to be selected for it, but it is still very humbling to have my artwork on the wall of someone else's business. This one in particular was a coffee shop, and the theme was simply spooky, which just so happened to be incredibly relevant for me and my style of artwork. And I actually submitted a few pieces from my Inktober project last year. So anyways, as cool as that is, and even though I enjoyed going and looking at everyone else's artwork as well, it took quite a few hours out of my day. Also, due to the fact that I am very introverted, it completely exhausted me being around people for 3 hours. I didn't even talk to that many people. I talked to a few, but for the most part, people had their own little friend groups, and I was there by myself. It is kind of incredible how tired simply being around people can make me. I'm pretty good at zoning out, so it didn't become too much of an issue. I actually had a little snippet of an idea that I might try to develop into my NaNoWriMo project this year. But by the time the entire thing was starting to wrap up and my ride was getting there, I was pretty sure that I was going to fall asleep at the table I was sitting at, and I still hadn't done my Inktober piece for the day. I had done some thumbnails earlier on, where I developed the prompt a little bit and tried to figure out what I wanted to draw. So luckily I did know what the piece was going to look like. However, I hadn't drawn it yet, and in retrospect it would have been better if I had brought a sketchbook or paper with me, but I wasn't really sure what the premiere was going to be like and if I was going to be talking to people or not. So I didn't even bring earbuds. I didn't bring anything with me except for my phone. It was what it was, and it was enjoyable to kind of get away from everything for a bit, but by the time I got home, it was around 9:30, and that was when I started working on my sketch. I think that tiredness that I was feeling did translate a little bit to the art, but luckily it wasn't as bad as it could have been. However, ultimately I ended up kind of hacking the system a little bit, but it was for my own well-being, so I managed to make myself okay with it. And essentially what I did was that I completed my sketch and I started to ink it. I did all of my basic line work with my 005 micron, and then I stopped. There wasn't any line variation, there wasn't any ink washes, it was just the bare minimum line work of the piece. Because I did some inking, I still technically called it my Inktober piece for day 6, but I did finish this piece this morning as opposed to last night. This is kind of something that I've been trying to drill through my head for a while now. The idea that my own health, both physical and mental, should take priority over productivity. That is actually very much in contrast to the type of person I am by nature. Instinctively, I very much like to push through. If I'm tired, I like to keep going. I like to do everything that I set out to do, and then some. But from personal experience, this does tend to lead to burnout in my case. I set huge goals for myself and then push until I completely break down. And then it takes a lot of time to recover from that. while we're already on the topic of this, of my bad habit of pushing myself until I break, I want to talk about a kind of idea or intention I have for after Inktober is over, and that is that I will most likely be taking a smallish break after the month is over. It's not going to be anything too extreme, maybe 1 to 2 weeks, just to give myself some time to work on some projects for me, and also to just prepare things for future projects. While I'm already here and talking about it, about how difficult it is for me, I do want to say that I would encourage you to reflect on this and kind of apply it to your own lives. You need to be considerate of yourself too. A lot of times I overwork myself because I'm thinking of everything I can give to other people. I want to do multiple projects and multiple different things at once because I want to share those with others. However, I have been trying to be better recently about giving myself some leniency in this. I'm still going to be setting big goals, I always do that, and I don't think that it would be very good for me if I stopped setting those goals because then I wouldn't have anywhere to go. However, I'm trying to be better about letting myself know that it's okay if I don't quite make those goals. Most likely, I will still make it further than I would have without the goals in the first place. So doing my best is okay, and as difficult as it is for me to fully believe that, I am trying. So kind of moving away from that topic completely and moving on to the piece itself, I do think of this piece as an expansion of the piece from yesterday's video. The eyes that are scattered throughout this illustration are obviously the same style as the ones that were in that doorway, and the trees are in line with it as well. I've talked a lot about connections within the pieces this month, and I think I've decided why it is that I like those connections so much. For those of you who know about the concept of the world of Immensum, which is kind of my Instagram and my own website, it is simply the idea that all of my fiction, as well as all of my artwork, is connected within the scope of a universe, all depending on which planet it takes place in, or which timeline, or what time period. And I think what it is with these Inktober pieces is that when I make those connections, I feel like I'm telling a more coherent story, and I'm visually seeing those connections as opposed to simply knowing that they exist. It is very much a guilty pleasure of mine, these sorts of connections and the way that everything fits together. But because it is so enjoyable to me, I'm going to continue doing it, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. So with all that being said, I do very much like the way that this piece turned out, even if it wasn't all completed on day 6. And I am going to transition us into the part of the video where I pick tomorrow's prompt. So here's the finished piece for day number 6 of Inktober. I think my favorite part about this piece is probably the trees in the background, even though they are fairly subtle, and I'm not sure how well you can really see them on camera. And as you can see, there are definitely quite a few similarities between this piece that I created in this video and the piece from the last video, which is something else I'm also very satisfied with. So moving these out of the way and pulling in the prompt hat, let's pick the prompt for tomorrow. And the prompt is beneath the surface. I'm not really sure where I'm going to take this prompt yet. There are a number of different ways that it could go. However, hopefully I'll be able to come up with something interesting regardless. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing the time-lapse process. Be sure to subscribe if you want to continue watching my Inktober journey, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.